The crystal chandeliers overhead did nothing to warm the cold, predatory glint in Mr. Sterling's eyes. He shoved a glass of amber liquid into Clara's trembling hand, backing her against the plush wall of the ballroom. "Drink it," he hissed, his voice dripping with malice. "Finish this glass or your company declares bankruptcy by sunrise." Clara, the most powerful woman in the room, felt utterly helpless. Tears blurred her vision as she raised the glass to her lips. Suddenly, a rough, calloused hand intercepted hers. A deep voice cut through the noise, calm yet commanding. "Stop. Do not force her. She is with me." Clara froze. The voice triggered a memory buried deep in her soul. She spun around to face the waiter. Crash! The glass slipped from her fingers, shattering into 1,000 pieces on the marble floor. She was staring into the eyes of a husband who had been dead for 5 years. Before we find out why she dropped the glass, let us know where you are watching from in the comments. We love connecting with fans from all over the world. And if you believe true love never dies, hit that like button right now. The grand ballroom was a kaleidoscope of diamonds and silk, alive with the hum of expensive conversation. But for Clara, the most powerful woman in the room, the noise was nothing more than static. She sat at the head of the VIP table, her posture impeccable, her face a mask of polite indifference. To the world, she was the Iron Widow, the brilliant CEO who had taken her late husband's company and turned it into a global empire. But beneath the designer gown and the stoic expression, Clara was screaming. Her eyes drifted inevitably to the empty chair beside her. It was symbolic. No one dared to sit there. It was reserved for a ghost. It had been 5 long, agonizing years since the night her world ended. The Coast Guard had called her at 3 in the morning, their voices heavy with pity. A sudden storm, a capsized yacht, wreckage found, but no survivors. They never found a body, only a piece of the hull with the name The Indestructible painted on it. Everyone told her to move on. They told her that time heals all wounds. But they were wrong. Time only deepened the silence. Every night, Clara reached across the bed to a cold, empty space. Every morning she put on a brave face, but she wore Leo's wedding band on a gold chain tucked beneath her dress, resting against her beating heart. She was the wealthiest woman in the city, yet she would trade every single penny just to hear his laugh one more time. Meanwhile, in the bustling, steam-filled service corridor behind the ballroom, a man named Jack adjusted his stiff collar. He felt like an imposter in the white tuxedo. It was too tight across his broad shoulders, shoulders built for heavy lifting, not for balancing trays of champagne. Jack was a ghost of a different kind. He lived in a drafty one-room apartment on the edge of the industrial district with his 6-year-old daughter, Lily. Lily was a ball of sunshine with golden curls and a laugh that could melt winter snow. But lately, that laugh had been replaced by a hacking cough. She needed a specialist, and specialists required money that a handyman could rarely provide. That was why Jack was here tonight, working a double shift as a server for the city's elite. He needed the tips. He needed to buy Lily her inhalers. He paused by the kitchen doors, rubbing his temple. A dull, rhythmic throbbing had started behind his eyes the moment he walked into this building. It happened often, strange headaches that felt like a locked door in his mind trying to burst open. He had no memory of his life before 5 years ago. He had woken up in a small charity hospital in a fishing village, his body broken and his mind a blank slate. The fisherman who found him washed ashore said it was a miracle he had not been swallowed by the ocean. He had no wallet, no identification, no name. He chose Jack because it sounded sturdy. He built a new life from the wreckage, working with his hands, loving his daughter, and trying to ignore the gaping void where his past should be. Jack picked up a silver tray, his reflection staring back at him. A man with sad eyes and a jagged scar cutting through his left eyebrow. He took a deep breath, pushing the pain aside. He had a job to do. He stepped out onto the ballroom floor, invisible to the wealthy guests, walking toward a destiny he could not remember, but was about to collide with. The atmosphere in the ballroom shifted imperceptibly at first, like the sudden pressure drop before a violent thunderstorm. Mr. Sterling, a corporate raider with a reputation for devouring smaller companies, had been circling Clara's table all night. He was a large man who took up too much space, his face flushed with expensive scotch and the arrogance of a man who had never been told no. He finally made his move. He signaled for the other guests at the VIP table to leave. Intimidated by his financial clout, they scattered like frightened birds, leaving Clara isolated in her shimmering silk gown. Sterling pulled up a chair, dragging it across the marble floor with a screech that made Clara wince. He sat too close, invading her personal space, the smell of cigar smoke and stale alcohol wafting off him in waves.
"You look tired, Clara,"
Sterling began, his voice feigning concern but his eyes cold as ice. Running a global empire is a heavy burden for a fragile woman, especially one who is all alone. Clara straightened her spine, channeling every ounce of strength she had left. "I am managing just fine, Mr. Sterling. Our quarterly profits are up. Now, if you will excuse me, I have guests to attend to." She tried to stand, but Sterling placed a heavy, damp hand on her bare shoulder, forcing her back down into her seat. It was a subtle move, hidden from the room by the tablecloth, but the physical threat was unmistakable. "Sit down," he growled, the mask of politeness slipping entirely. "We are not done. I saw the reports, Clara. You are rejecting my acquisition offer. That is a mistake, a fatal mistake." "I am not selling my husband's legacy to you," Clara replied, her voice shaking slightly but her chin held high. "Leo built that company with honor. You would strip it for parts within a week. I will never sign." Sterling laughed, a cruel, wet sound that grated on her nerves. "Leo? Leo is dead, sweetheart. He is rotting at the bottom of the ocean. He is not coming back to save you." The mention of Leo struck Clara like a physical blow. She gasped, her hand flying to her chest, the color draining from her face. "You are clinging to a ghost," Sterling pressed on, sensing her weakness like a shark smells blood. "Face reality. You are a lonely widow playing dress-up in a CEO's office. You are weak. You need a real man to step in and take control. You need me." Across the room, near the heavy velvet curtains, Jack was clearing a table. He was invisible to these people, just another pair of hands in a white uniform. But his hearing was sharp. The name Leo drifted through the air, and for reasons he could not explain, it made the hair on the back of his neck stand up. He paused, a dirty napkin clutched in his hand. A sharp pain spiked behind his eyes. The headache was back, more violent than before. He looked toward the head table. He saw the large man leaning over the woman in the silver dress. He saw her shrink back. He saw the sheer terror in her eyes. A strange sensation washed over Jack. It was not a memory exactly. It was a physical reaction. His muscles tensed, his jaw clenched tight. A wave of protective fury surged through his veins, hot and undeniable. It felt ancient, instinctive, like a wolf reacting to a threat against its mate. "Why do I care?" Jack thought, rubbing his throbbing temple. "I do not know her." "Keep your head down, Jack. You need this paycheck for Lily's medicine. Do not get involved. These people will destroy you." But he could not look away. Sterling was escalating. He grabbed a bottle of strong whiskey from a passing server's tray and poured a glass to the brim. The amber liquid sloshed over the sides, staining the pristine white tablecloth. "You are too uptight, Clara," Sterling sneered, his voice rising, drawing the attention of the nearby tables. "That is your problem. You are cold, frigid. If you want me to spare your pathetic little company, you need to show me some respect." He shoved the glass into her hand, wrapping his thick fingers around hers, forcing her to hold it. "Drink," Sterling commanded loudly. "Drink it all. Prove to me you can play with the big boys. Prove to me you are not just a weeping widow." The room went silent. The music seemed to stop. Dozens of the city's wealthiest people watched. They saw the harassment. They saw the cruelty. But not a single person moved. They were all afraid of Sterling's power. Or perhaps they just viewed her humiliation as entertainment. Clara looked around, begging for help with her eyes. She saw only turned backs and averted gazes. She was the queen of the business world, yet in this moment, she was utterly defenseless. Jack felt a snap inside his chest. The headache that had plagued him all night suddenly vanished, replaced by a crystal-clear, singular purpose. He did not care about the job. He did not care about the tips. He did not care about the hierarchy. He dropped the dirty napkin on the table. He began to walk. He did not walk like a servant. He did not scurry or shuffle. He walked with a long, powerful stride, his shoulders squared, his chin high. As he crossed the ballroom floor, the air seemed to shift around him. He was no longer Jack the waiter. He was a force of nature moving toward a storm. This guy is absolutely disgusting. He thinks he can bully her just because she is a widow and he has a bigger bank account. It makes my blood boil to see everyone else just looking away. They are too scared to help. But look at the waiter. Look at Jack. Something is waking up inside him. He is not walking like an employee anymore. He is walking like a man on a mission. Is his memory coming back? Or is it just pure instinct? I have a feeling Sterling is about to regret being born. Jack moved through the crowd like a ship cutting through rough water. He did not ask people to move. His presence demanded it. The idle chatter of the guests died down as they noticed the server marching toward the VIP table with a look of thunder on his face. He reached the table just as Sterling was tilting the glass, trying to force the burning liquid against Clara's closed lips. Jack did not hesitate. He did not politely clear his throat. He did not ask for permission. He slammed his empty serving tray onto the adjacent table with a deafening metallic clang that echoed through the silent ballroom like a gunshot. Sterling flinched, his hand jerking. A splash of amber whiskey landed on Clara's dress. Before Sterling could recover, Jack reached out. His hand, roughened by years of manual labor and scarred from the sea, clamped down on Sterling's wrist. It was not a gentle touch. It was a vice grip, iron and unyielding. "That is enough," Jack said. His voice was not loud, but it carried a terrifying resonance. It was a baritone rumble that vibrated in the chests of everyone standing nearby. It was not the voice of a servant asking a question. It was the voice of a commander issuing an order. Sterling froze. He looked at the hand gripping his wrist, then up at the face of the man who dared to touch him. He saw a waiter in a cheap, ill-fitting uniform. He saw a jagged scar. He saw poverty. Sterling's shock quickly morphed into rage. His face turned a shade of purple that matched the velvet curtains. "Get your filthy hands off me," Sterling spat, trying to wrench his arm free. But Jack did not budge. He stood rooted to the spot, as solid as a mountain. "I said," Jack repeated, his eyes boring into Sterling's soul, "that is enough. Let her go." With a sudden sharp twist, Jack forced Sterling's hand away. The glass of whiskey wobbled and fell from Sterling's grip, landing on the thick carpet with a dull thud, spilling its contents harmlessly away from Clara. Jack stepped in. He placed his body physically between Clara and Sterling, creating a human shield. He stood with his back to Clara, protecting her, facing the threat head-on. Clara, trembling in her chair, stared at the broad back of the stranger in front of her. The way he stood, feet shoulder-width apart, shoulders squared, head high, sent a jolt of déjà vu through her heart so powerful it made her dizzy. She had seen that stance 1,000 times before. It was the stance of a man who would burn the world down to keep her safe. Sterling stood up, knocking his chair over. He was taller than Jack, but he lacked the sheer, raw intensity that radiated from the other man. "Do you know who I am?" Sterling roared, his spittle flying. "I am worth billions. I own this city. And you? You are nothing. You are a waiter, a servant, a nobody with a cheap suit and dirt under his fingernails." Sterling looked around the room, inviting the crowd to join in his mockery. "Look at him," Sterling laughed, though the sound was nervous. "He thinks he is a hero. Boy, if you do not step aside in 3 seconds, I will have you fired. I will have you blacklisted. You will never work in this town again. I will crush you like a bug." Jack did not blink. He did not look at the crowd. He did not look at the security guards who were starting to move toward them. He kept his eyes locked on Sterling. "You can fire me," Jack said, his voice calm and steady, cutting through Sterling's bluster. "You can take my job. You can take my money. I do not care." Jack took a step forward, forcing Sterling to take an involuntary step back. "I may be a waiter," Jack continued, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper that only the people in the front row could hear. "I may have empty pockets. I may not remember where I come from. But I know one thing for certain." He pointed a finger at Sterling's chest. "A gentleman never forces a woman to do anything against her will. A real man does not use his power to terrify someone smaller than him. You are not a titan of industry, Mr. Sterling. You are just a bully in an expensive suit." The insult hung in the air, heavy and absolute. Sterling's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. He had expected the waiter to cower. He had expected an apology. He was not prepared for this calm, dismantling undressing of his character. "You," Sterling stammered, his face turning crimson. "You are finished. Security, get this trash out of my sight." Two large security guards stepped forward, their hands reaching for Jack. "Do not touch him!" The scream came from behind Jack. It was Clara. She stood up, her legs shaking but her voice fierce. She had been paralyzed by fear, but seeing this stranger risk everything for her had ignited a fire in her soul. Jack turned his head slightly to look at her over his shoulder. For the first time, he looked directly at Clara. "Are you all right, ma'am?" Jack asked gently. Clara looked at his profile. The lighting was dim, casting shadows across his face. But then, he turned fully. The light from the chandeliers caught his eyes the color of a stormy sea. She saw the scar on his brow. She saw the way his jaw set when he was angry. The world stopped spinning. The noise of the party faded into a dull roar. All she could see was him. Jack turned back to Sterling and the guards, his protective instinct still firing on all cylinders. He raised a hand to stop the guards. "She is with me," Jack declared. It was a simple sentence, 4 words, but he said it with the authority of a king claiming his queen. "She is with me," Jack repeated, louder this time, challenging the entire room. "And if anyone wants to touch her, they have to go through me first." Sterling sneered, regaining his composure. "With you? Don't make me laugh. Look at her. She is royalty. You are the help. She wouldn't look twice at a piece of garbage like you." Jack ignored him. He turned his full attention to Clara, offering her his hand. It was a rough hand, scarred and work-worn, shaking slightly from the adrenaline. "Come with me," Jack whispered. "Let me get you out of here." Clara stared at his hand. Then she looked up at his face. The recognition hit her like a tidal wave, crashing against the shores of her sanity. She reached out. The silence in the ballroom was absolute. The phrase hung in the air, echoing off the high, gilded ceilings. "She is with me." For Clara, time did not just stop, it shattered. The last time she had heard those words, spoken with that exact protective cadence, was 5 years ago. It was the voice that had promised to love her until the end of time. She took a step closer to the waiter. Her heart was hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. She ignored Sterling, who was fuming in the background. She ignored the security guards. She only saw the man in the ill-fitting white tuxedo. She looked up into his eyes. They were the color of the Atlantic Ocean, a deep, stormy gray that she had memorized a lifetime ago. She looked at the jagged scar cutting through his left eyebrow. The doctors had told her his body was lost at sea, but she knew the map of his face better than she knew her own name. Her hand trembled violently as she reached out. Her fingers brushed against his rough, unshaven cheek. "Leo?" she whispered, her voice barely audible, choked with a desperate hope. "Is it you?" Jack flinched at her touch, but he did not pull away. The moment her skin connected with his, a blinding white light exploded behind his eyes. The dull ache that had plagued him for 5 years erupted into a searing, agonizing pain. It was not a headache. It was a dam breaking. The mental wall he had built to survive, the wall that hid the trauma of the accident, crumbled into dust. Jack stumbled back, clutching his head with both hands. He fell to his knees on the marble floor, groaning in agony. "Jack!" Clara cried out, dropping to her knees beside him, heedless of her expensive gown. "What is wrong? Help him! Someone help him!" But Jack could not hear her. He was drowning. He was back in the water. The storm, the black waves rising like mountains, the yacht tipping over, the screaming wind. He was calling out her name. "Clara! Stay in the cabin!" Then, the mast snapping, the blow to his head, darkness, cold, freezing, suffocating cold, drifting, the taste of salt, the pain. Waking up on the sand with no name and no past. The images flashed through his mind faster than a heartbeat. He saw a wedding. He saw a woman in a white dress laughing under a gazebo. Clara. He saw a boardroom. He saw himself signing papers. Leo. He saw the face of the woman he loved more than life itself. The pain vanished as quickly as it had arrived, leaving him gasping for air on the ballroom floor. The fog was gone. The empty void in his mind was filled. He knew who he was. He was not just Jack the waiter. He was Leo. And the woman holding his face, tears streaming down her cheeks, was his wife. He slowly lifted his head. His eyes were clear now, the confusion replaced by a profound, heartbreaking recognition. He reached up and covered her hand with his. "Clara," he rasped, his voice thick with emotion. Clara let out a sob that tore through the room. "You remember," she wept. "Oh God, you remember." "I remember everything," Leo said, tears cutting tracks through the grime on his face. "The storm, the waves. I thought I lost you. I am sorry. I am so sorry I took so long to come home." "You are alive!" Clara cried, pulling him into a fierce embrace, burying her face in his neck. "They told me you were dead, but I knew. I felt it." The guests watched in stunned silence. The waiter was holding the CEO. The widow was holding her ghost. Leo pulled back slightly to look at her, wiping a tear from her cheek with his thumb. Then, a sudden panic seized him. "Lily," he gasped. "My daughter. I have to. She is waiting for me." "Daughter?" Clara asked, confused but not letting go. "I have a daughter now," Leo said, his voice urgent. "She is sick. I was working to buy her medicine. I cannot leave her." Clara looked at him, seeing the terror of a father in his eyes. She did not feel jealousy. She felt only relief that the man she loved had survived, and that he had found a reason to keep living. "We will go to her," Clara said firmly, helping him stand. "We will get the best doctors in the city. She is part of you, so she is part of me." Leo stood up, pulling Clara up with him. He turned to face the room, no longer Jack the waiter, but Leo, the returned king. And the look he gave Sterling made the billionaire shrink back in genuine terror. Mr. Sterling stumbled backward, knocking over a champagne bucket with a loud crash. The color drained from his face until he looked like a corpse. He looked at the man standing before him, the scar, the steel-gray eyes, the commanding posture. It was impossible, yet it was undeniable. The waiter he had called garbage was the very man whose legacy he had tried to destroy. "Leo?" Sterling choked out, his voice trembling with genuine fear. "But you are dead." Leo took one step forward. He did not raise his fist. He did not shout. He simply adjusted his cufflinks, a habit from a lifetime ago, and looked at Sterling with absolute disdain. "I am very much alive," Leo said, his voice calm but cold as a glacier. "And I am taking back my company. If you ever come near my wife again, I will not just bankrupt you, Sterling. I will erase you." He did not wait for a response. He turned his back on the billionaire, dismissing him as if he were nothing more than a speck of dust. "Let us go home," Leo whispered to Clara. They left the ballroom hand in hand, leaving the stunned crowd and the ruined gala behind them. They did not stop at a mansion or a penthouse. Instead, Clara's limousine sped through the night to the run-down industrial district, pulling up to a crumbling brick building. Leo led Clara up 3 flights of creaking stairs to a tiny, one-room apartment. Inside, an elderly neighbor was watching over a sleeping child. Leo rushed to the bed. "Lily?" The little girl stirred, her breathing raspy and shallow. She opened her eyes, her golden curls matted with sweat. "Daddy? You are back early." "I am back, Princess," Leo said, his voice breaking as he scooped her into his arms. "And I brought a friend." Clara stood in the doorway, looking at the child who was the daughter of the man she loved, but not her own. A wave of complex emotions washed over her. Shock, confusion, but mostly, overwhelming gratitude. This little girl was the reason Leo had fought to survive. This little girl had given him a purpose when his memory was lost. Clara walked forward and knelt beside the bed. She looked at Lily, seeing Leo's eyes reflecting back at her. "Hello, Lily," Clara said softly, reaching out to brush a curl from the child's fevered forehead. "My name is Clara." "Are you an angel?" Lily wheezed innocently. "You look like a princess." Clara laughed through her tears. "No, sweetie, I am family, and we are going to take care of you. You are never going to be cold or sick again." 1 month later, the headlines had changed. Leo's return was the miracle of the decade. Sterling was facing an investigation for fraud and had fled the city in disgrace. But the real story was in a private garden behind the city's finest estate. Leo sat on a bench, healthy and shaved, watching 2 people play in the sunlight. Lily, fully recovered and laughing, was chasing a butterfly. Clara was running right beside her, holding her hand. Leo smiled, feeling a peace he had not known in 5 years. He had lost his memory, but his heart had never forgotten the way home. He had his queen, and now they had a princess. I am literally crying right now. Can you imagine the power of that moment? He forgot his entire life, but he remembered how to protect her. That line, "She is with me," will go down in history as the most romantic comeback ever. And seeing Clara accept Lily without a second of hesitation, that is what real love looks like. It expands, it does not divide. If this story touched your soul, please drop a red heart emoji in the comments. Do not forget to subscribe for more stories that make you believe in miracles. Love you all.